Hi, welcome back to Platinum Black Services. When forming any type of business structure, it's very important to know how to document your meetings and to organize your corporate records. In fact, every state requires it. In this video, I will simulate a meeting and show you step by step how to document the minutes to your pre-organizational meeting when forming a C or S corporation. Now, many people will charge you for this, but I want to do this free because of the climate of inflation right now. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Okay, so first let's go over what a corporation is, just as a recap. We're also going to talk about the pros of forming and owning one, as well as the cons of owning and forming one. So, the purpose of a corporation is to form a legal entity which is identified by the state, usually the secretary of the state that you're in, as a separate individual from its owners and shareholders. So you starting the business would be considered the owner and shareholder, and then the corporation is known as a person separate from you and recognized by the state. It will have its own tax identification number, also known as the EIN, and has a separate and will have a separate tax return to be filed, again, separate from you as the owner or shareholder. All right, so there are various types of corporations. So we'll go over it real quick in this list. The main corporation, the most common one, is known as a C corporation, which we will be preparing to discuss this video. There's an S corporation, which is a little different. It's still a corporation with the benefits that you can get for limited liability protection. However, the way you file taxes is different compared to a C corporation. Again, a C corporation, you're going to file a separate tax form. It's known as Form 1120. However, with an S corporation, you are getting the pass-through entity benefits, meaning any income or revenue earned by the S corporation will be reported on your personal taxes, which gives you a different type of advantage if you're a smaller business. That's what the S corporation benefit is for. There's also a PC or professional corporation. So if you are under certain state statutes or regulations holding any specific type of license or certification, for example, if you are a physician, a licensed physician, or an architect, or a CPA, a certified professional accountant, you will have to, if there's a group of you guys with those licenses and you decide to start a corporation, you will have to file what's called or register as a professional corporation, PC for short. B corporations. This is a little tricky. There are a lot more strict rules in becoming a B corporation, but just overall, the corporation must benefit the environment or meets the highest standard of social initiatives. A few examples of corporations that exist as a B corporation is considered Ben and Jerry's, Kickstarter because they benefit the community or social initiatives, and the Honest Company. So those are a few corporations. If you weren't sure or never knew, they are considered a B corporation. And we also have a closed corporation, which is privately held, family owned corporation where there are no future plans on hiring or not hiring, but at least any ownership going past family members. And last, we have what's called the nonprofit corporation, which a lot of people are pretty familiar with. There are lots of programs out here that exist strictly to raise funds and to help the community in certain programs and certain initiatives. There's another application you'll have to fill out in order to be tax exempt, which is called the 501c3 application. So let me know if anybody's out there looking to form a nonprofit organization. I actually used to have a nonprofit about 6, 7, 8 years ago, something like that. I used to be a founder of one. But if you are interested in learning that setup, please drop a note in the comments below and let me know. And I will look into putting something together to teach you how to go through that process. All right, so pros of forming and owning a corporation. First are separate tax reports, as mentioned before. You, the owner or the shareholder, same thing. You will have your own tax return to file, and then the corporation will have its own tax report to file. The benefit, though, for the corporation to file its own tax report is there are a lot of tax laws that are favorable towards corporations, which gives them a lot of tax breaks and deductions. Asset ownership, again, the corporation is known as its own identity or entity. So, because of that, it can purchase real estate, land, equipment for business use, of course, but it can basically purchase those items and own it and have that protection, limited liability protection, based on it being recognized as its own entity. Because it's separate from the owners and shareholders, there will be separate debt and liabilities. So you will have your personal loans, and the corporation will have its own loans and things that it's responsible for. They will not cross. You can obtain venture capital financing. So if you have a business that's needs to raise some extra money, a corporation has the ability to do that. You can reinvest your earnings versus paying dividends. So they're one of the biggest concerns that is always talked about is, oh, you don't want to form a corporation because you can be taxed twice, which is true, meaning you're taxed on the income, or it's taxed on its income, and then any dividends or uh, profit of dividends that it wants to pay out, then there's a tax on that. However, it's not required to pay dividends. You don't have to, depending on how you set up your corporation. You can always take that money and reinvest it, buying new equipment, buying new things for the business, which again is an alternative to paying out dividends, which of course you don't doesn't make you it doesn't put you in a position where you have to pay extra taxes. I'll just say that. And then, as I mentioned before, limited liability protection. That corporate veil is what it's called. It's another word for the limited liability protection. So basically, if you were taken to court personally for something, your business is separate from you. It is protected from any lawsuit that is held that is basically comes up against you personally. And last, it's easy to sell and transfer ownership via shares. Again, I mentioned you are an owner. You're also known as a shareholder. And what you hold are stock certificates within the corporation. So if you decide to sell it, or if someone passes and it's written in the stockholder agreement, it's easy to go ahead and make that change of ownership that way for a corporation. With other companies or other business structures, such as an LLC, for example, if someone dies, that is it. You have owner's interest, but you don't have the setup as a corporation with shares. So if you're an LLC, if someone has passed, unfortunately, that business is considered no longer in existence. The cons of forming and owning a corporation. Here, you will have initial costs and annual filing fees to start and to maintain your corporation. And that's just what it is. That's just with anything, because you're registering with the state, and there will be requirements. They want to just make sure that you're still operating, the information of owners, directors, so on and so forth are still current, things of that nature. So it's just part of the process. It does have Corporations do have a sophisticated and complicated tax reporting, but you will learn that. I don't want you to be afraid because it is something that maybe you've never dealt with, or you just have no understanding of taxes. Totally fine. That's why you have tax accountants. You will hire one to help you with that process, or educate yourself on this as well. Again, there's more benefits to having a corporation than not. No commingling of personal and business finances, and that just should just be done across the board. I know that with certain companies, like business structures, I'm sorry, like an LLC or a sole proprietorship, you don't have to separate your bank accounts. It's not necessarily required, but it really is highly recommended. With a corporation, it is required, and for a good reason, because when you do report your taxes, there are uh, items, there's activities specifically meant for business that will give you certain tax breaks and deductions, and it cannot, your personal activity or transactions cannot be a part of that. It is not allowed. So, just to make things easy across the board, you will have to have separate banking for yourself, separate banking for your business. The double taxation on distributed earnings and dividends. I kind of mentioned that earlier a little bit, but you're not required to pay dividends. You don't have to unless you want to. But again, that's going to come also with hiring a tax accountant to help you through that process and letting you know when it's a good time to pay out dividends, if it makes sense, if you can carry that tax burden, if you do so. And if not, again, it's always the option of reinvesting those funds. So I wouldn't worry about that initially, especially in the beginning for new people starting a corporation. That's, you're so far from even worrying about double taxation. Don't let that be a worry. That's more so in, after a few years of operation and you're bringing in revenue and you're seeing where you need to kind of make those adjustments and changes. And last, you have required corporate meetings, documentation, and retention of corporate records. This is very, very important. And we're going over the very first meeting that you'll need to have, which is the pre-organizational meeting of incorporators, which is so important, because it's just like a good checklist. So you're going down the list of all the things you need to do to make sure you're forming this corporation the right way and you haven't missed anything. Okay, here I want to go over 2 reasons why you want to form a corporation versus an LLC. And this video is not to stop you or change your mind. If you decide to go the LLC route, it's totally fine. I've owned an LLC before, I've owned a corporation before, I've owned a nonprofit before. All of those entities have their benefits. Okay. It just depends on what you want to do with that company going forward into the future, if you want to, grow a certain way or not. Um, but the first thing here is that potential investors don't want to complicate their personal tax situation by becoming an LLC member or partner. Meaning they'll have to have a K1, an annual K1, which is a report of income to them, on, at the end of the year for the taxes. Business income is taxed as personal income. So basically what this means is, if you have an LLC and you have investors with, that have given you money for the LLC, your LLC makes money. Certain investors just don't want the hassle to complicate their personal taxes. If they're operating as a corporation, like let's say there's an investor that's a corporation and they want to invest in your business via their corporation, but your business is a limited liability instead. That means that person has to obtain a K1, and they might not want to report business income on their personal income. It might just complicate things for whatever reason they have. So that's why when you have investors, you're a corporation and you end up having investors, it's just easier for them because there's just certain tax reporting complications they don't have to deal with if they are helping to finance or funding a corporation, or invest in. And the second reason is some investors may have tax exempt partners who aren't allowed to receive business income from a pass through entity, aka LLC. So an LLC is known as a pass through entity, similar to an S corporation, meaning any income or expenses earned or spent by the entity, the LLC, will be reported on the personal taxes. Corporations, you don't have that. Corporations are basically, again, separate. You as the owner, shareholder, report your own taxes, and then the business entity, the corporation, reports their own taxes. And if you're an LLC, however, and you have an investor investing in your business, that investor might have some tax exempt people, and when they're investing in certain corporations, that doesn't muddy up their tax exempt status. But because an LLC is income driven and has to report income, tax exempt people are not supposed to have income because then it'll be taxed. So again, you want to consider that if you're starting a company and you want to deal with investors to help your business grow, corporation usually is a better route than going the LLC route, because it becomes a little bit more complicated dealing with outside people bringing in funding to help your business grow. Okay, so the main reason why are we here to go over a pre-organizational meeting? Why is it needed? So the purpose is for helping the incorporators, such as the incorporators can be anybody, such as the owner, which is you, owner slash shareholder, an attorney if you decide to have one, it's not required. A CPA, which is your certified public accountant, again, it's not required, but it's not wrong to have one. All of you guys or just yourself, if you are the only person forming the corporation, to document all the decisions on how the corporation will be established. So it's again, as I mentioned before, it's kind of like a checklist. You're going to go through all of these different things to make a decision or make decisions on how your corporation will be formed and managed. Incorporators do not have to be the owners or shareholders and can voluntarily resign after the corporation has been formally registered with the state. What do I mean by that? So let's say, okay, let me go back. So usually incorporators will be the actual owner. So it could be, for example, if I'm starting a corporation, it could be me and whoever the people that I decide to go in business with. We come together and we are considered the incorporators to go over forming this business. However, if I decide that I don't want to be the one to go through all of the registration process or some of the decision making, I want someone such as an attorney. I hired an attorney to do that on my behalf, or even a registering agent or a company. There are a lot of companies out there that you can pay and they can prepare all the documentation for you. They can be considered the incorporator, not the owner, but just the incorporator, meaning they're handling all of the paperwork and the registration and the processes of getting the business set up. And then once it's done and set up, they will have to kind of resign per se, as being like the incorporator. It's just formalities, but it's just resigning from that position, because once that job is done, it's done, and you have that on record, as far as who's done it and how it was documented. All right. So during this pre-organizational meeting of the incorporators, as I mentioned, there are going to be a lot of decisions made. What decisions are usually made during this meeting? So we're going to come up with, of course, the business name. You need to know what principal location you're going to run your corporation from or out of. You're going to need a registered agent. The registered agent will be someone who is basically considered available to receive mail, important mail from, it can be from the state, it can be from the government, the IRS, or whoever, but they have to be considered a person that's available during business hours, which is typically, I believe, either 8 to 4, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, when the post office is open, and to be able to receive mail, even if maybe you were served, because sometimes certified mail will come, or you were served something for a lawsuit or something like that. Again, you have to be available, or somebody or some place, and we'll talk about that, has to be available to receive mail on behalf of the corporation. We'll also talk about the number of authorized shares, because again, the owners will be shareholders, so you have to authorize shares. Articles of incorporation, those are the forms. So two things. So you'll have articles of incorporation. You'll actually file and register with the state, so that the state will set you up or set the business up, and it will be public record that this company exists. And then you have articles of incorporation, which are articles within the business itself that outlines basically how the company will be set up, who certain people are, how certain decisions will be handled, so on and so forth. And we can go over that later as well. Okay. S corporation status. So that is a separate form you'll file after becoming a corporation, just so that your tax status can be, you can be a pass-through entity versus having to file a separate tax return, which is the 1124 regular C corporation. We will not go into details, but I'll at least give you the name of that form later on in the video. Corporate bylaws. Corporate bylaws basically determine, again, how the organization will operate, who will have certain responsibilities, when certain things need to occur, such as minutes and meetings, so on and so forth. Shareholders agreement, that's for the owners. Need to know, how the shares will be managed, how they'll be issued, how they'll be redeemed, how sales will occur for shares, how people um, what will happen to an owner if they should pass, or how meetings will be decided with shareholder meet when shareholders meet, so on and so forth. Next, we have the board of directors. They will be selected by the shareholders, and the job of the board of directors is to make a lot of the main decisions over the corporation, including who will be the CEO, CFO, COO, and other higher level chief positions for the company. And then just other decisions as well. And you'll see as we move on to the next slides. So overall, this will establish the corporate veil. We mentioned that before, or the limited liability protection. This is the process. When we always throw that term around, corporate veil, what does that mean? Is you have to have the structure. That's what the corporate veil is really. It's the structure. It's not just saying, okay, I filed the I registered my corporation with the state. You also have actions to follow to create the structure and to maintain it so that it will be upheld in court if something was to happen to your company. That's how you have that corporate veil of protection for your corporation. All right, guys, now we're ready to actually jump into what this video is actually about. So we're looking here at these four individuals. These people are forming a corporation. We are going to simulate a meeting, a pre-organizational meeting of the incorporators. These guys will be the incorporators. They're not hiring an attorney. They're not hiring a CPA in this example. It's just four people coming together. They're actually related. And we're just going to go through this checklist as we move forward in these slides. We're going to go through this checklist so you can see what you need to do to help you form your corporation. All right, so in this example, these guys are meeting. They're going to form a commercial cleaning business. Again, like I said, family owned. So we have one brother, two sisters, and one cousin. The principal location, meaning the main location for this company, will be in Baltimore, Maryland. There will be a second location in Washington, D.C., and that's because the cousin lives there. So the brother and two sisters, they live in Baltimore, Maryland. The cousin lives in Washington, D.C. So you'll see how this whole this company will come together and be formed within the two locations that they're going to be operating out of. They will not elect to be an S corporation or for the status of that. So we won't go through that process. And the meeting minutes here for this pre-organizational meeting will be used to help complete and file the articles of incorporation with the state. And you'll see what I mean, because we're going to go through a lot of information, a lot of details. All right, so I created this template right here to formally record the minutes for the pre-organizational meeting. If you would like an exact copy along with some blank copies to help you form your corporation, please look below in the description section to find more information. All right, so to formally put this together, we're going to kick it off like this. We, the undersigned incorporators, held a pre-organizational meeting to form a corporation held under the state law of Maryland. Again, remember, the principal location for this commercial cleaning business will be in the state of Maryland. So number one, we're going to record the date, time, and location of this meeting. So it was held October 1st, In this example, right now we're in 2020, but we're close to 2024, so it can be whatever year. Um, the time is 1 p.m. For this example. Location, I made up an address, so 1234 Brownstone Lane, which is in Baltimore, Maryland, 21231. The following presently or physically attending this meeting right now, we have Latanya Banks, who is the sister, one of the sisters, Michael Banks, who is the brother, Morgan Banks, who is the other sister, and Jeffrey Williams, who is a cousin. Remember, this is a family that's coming together to form this corporation. All right. So if someone was an incorporator but was attending the meeting via telecommunications, number 3, you would record them in that section, but everyone will physically be there. So I just put not applicable or NA. Number 4, if anyone, again, was an incorporator but could not attend and was absent, you would put their name in that section, but everyone will be attending. So it's NA, not applicable. You will need what's called like an acting chairman of this meeting and an acting secretary. So the chairman will be basically the person leading this meeting, the main person keeping this going and overseeing everything. And then the acting secretary will be the person that's recording the minutes. They will have this template and will be recording everything, who attended, all the decisions being made, so on and so forth. So the acting chairman for now is considered the temporary chairman is Latanya Banks, and the acting secretary who's going to be taking minutes for this specific meeting is Morgan Banks. All right, number 6. Check this box if the corporation must be formed as a professional corporation and requires state licensing. For example, a licensed doctor, attorney, dentist, certified accountant, etc. We will not check this box. Number 7, name of said corporation shall be, they will name this business Banks National Commercial Cleaning, Inc. In parentheses, it says name availability. Check name availability on Secretary of State's website first. If you haven't already, if you have a name for the corporation you would like to use, but you want to make sure first that it is available, no one else has it, you want to go to the Secretary of State's website of the state that you're in. So in this case, they would go to the one for Maryland, and there should be a business name search section within that website. They can type that name in and make sure that no one has taken that name, registered a business under that name. So let's pretend that all of that's done and the name is available. That's the name they're going to use. Number 8, the corporation's principal office location. So as I mentioned before, the principal location will be in Baltimore, Maryland, but I have in parentheses purchase mailbox. Reason being is this is going to be a home-based business, so they had to go out and purchase a mailbox, and it's not that hard to do. You can go to an office for FedEx or UPS and buy a mailbox in order to receive mail instead of having it come to your home, as well as, if any business transactions you do or you're invoicing, you need to have a business address instead of your home address. Buy a mailbox. You can even buy one with the post office. I would recommend using their actual street address instead of saying P.O. Box. A lot of post offices allow you to do that. And there's other reasons why you don't want to say P.O. Box, and we'll get into that later. But this is the situation that they're doing now because they do not have the money right now to lease an office or space outside of what they're doing right now. It's a small startup, so funds are tight. Number 9, ownership status of principal office location. As I mentioned, is home base. They don't own a building. They're not leasing a building. So home base is checked. Number 10, the purpose for which this corporation is formed. So the purpose is to provide a variety of professional cleaning, janitorial services, maintenance, and specialty cleaning services to keep commercial spaces clean, healthy, and safe to work in. The reason why you want to have a purpose is just to give a general idea when you're filing your corporation papers with the state. You just want to give the state a general idea of what your business will be doing. Okay, so I kept it pretty general, and it is straight to the point of what they're going to do with their commercial cleaning business. Number 11, full name and address of appointed registered agent. PO boxes are not acceptable. So I kind of mentioned this a little bit before with having a registered agent. Michael Banks, the brother, will be will be the registered agent. And again, they purchased a mailbox. It's not a PO box because PO boxes generally you can't serve certain paperwork to a PO box because you'll need a signature. You'll need a physical signature. So at least a mailbox, maybe at FedEx or UPS, something like that, where people are physically there, they can sign off and confirm that they've received certain mail that requires signature. But again, Michael Banks will be the registered agent, and they're going to put down their purchased mailbox since it's a home-based business. Number 12, start date of corporation. We're just going to keep it simple and stick with October 1st. Number 13, the duration of the corporation. Typically, a corporation will be perpetual existence, meaning it will just go on and on and on until there's just something that happens that the company needs to close, or there is a decision to close it. So we're going to mark that as a default. However, you might have a definite term, maybe 5 or 10 years. You know exactly that's how long you want the corporation to be open, and then it'll be closed. But this is not our case here, so we're just going to say NA not applicable. Maybe a specific termination date. But that's not the case. And then maybe a specific termination event. Maybe something needs to happen in order for the business to close. But again, that's not the situation, so it's not applicable. But it's just something to keep in mind, because everyone has their reasons for opening a business and closing a business. So the state wants to know that. That's why those options are there, and you want to keep that in mind, because the state on the articles of incorporation, it'll ask, how long will your corporation be in existence? All right. So we mentioned again, registered agent. When you have selected a registered agent, there is a separate form. If you go to the kit that I created, again, check the description below. But here's an example of what this form looks like. So this is a separate form that will be part of the minutes. You want to attach this form to the minutes. And it just basically formally says, okay, this person either has been selected or has agreed to become the registered agent for the corporation. As you can see, original appointment of registered agent in Maryland for or of Banks National Commercial Cleaning Company, or Inc. The undersigned, being the incorporator of the above named corporation, hereby appoints Michael Banks, as we said before, to act as the registered agent upon whom any process, notice of demand required or permitted by statute to be served upon the corporation may be served. Again, this is all this is saying is, if the company's ever served anything, or like due process papers for a legal lawsuit or anything like that, anything of importance, or from the state, paperwork from the state, they're the person designated to receive that on behalf of the corporation, because they have to have a physical person available to receive information, to receive those types of letters or information in the mail is very important, and to know who that person is. The complete address of the registered agent is as follows. Again, that's that made up address I made for Baltimore, which is their mailbox because it's a home-based business. All right, number 14, total number of authorized shares. So authorized shares are basically, you're just saying these are the total number of shares the corporation will have and be able to distribute based off of, whatever the decision is in the shareholders agreement. So we're going to start off small, only because it is a small business. It's family owned. They don't have any expectations of bringing anyone in, no time soon. And also, there's another thing as far as valuing the shares that you decide to have, the company decides to have, because there are certain fees that are involved if you have if you decide to have a million shares, 100,000 shares, something like that. That can come into play with certain states that have to pay franchise taxes, and I'll talk about that next. So you always want to keep it small if you can, and in this situation we can. It's not a big deal. It doesn't belittle those who are the owners of the company. It's just saying, okay, we have some shares, and because you have to when you register your business, but we have some shares, we're going to put a value to it, and that's just how the business is structured. So again, we're going to have common shares of 1,000. Keep it small. All of them are have voting rights, meaning every share will have a voting right, for whatever decisions are made for the company. And the value is very small. It's going to be 0.01 cents. So total shares will be, again, 1,000, and the total value of all 1,000 shares is $10. Again, don't let that discourage you, because I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, my company should be worth 10,000 or 50,000 or 100 million, whatever. That's not what this is really about. It's just saying, it's just really for ownership and just to keep a record of it. And again, the smaller the amount of shares, the smaller the price, the easier the headache for those who just really don't understand how all that works until your company really substantially grows and gets complicated and brings investors. That's what it's really about. But they're not going to have investors. And then preferred shares, they will not have any preferred shares. They will not raise money using preferred shares for the, to help fund or bring extra capital into the company. So that's NA, not applicable. Now, here I want to break down, just in case anybody needs help understanding the difference between common stock and preferred stock. So this is just a quick overview. So when it comes to ownership and voting rights, common stock, you will have voting rights. Usually, you can have common stock without voting rights, but usually it does. Preferred stock, there's no voting rights with preferred stock, but the basically that type of stock is used as a loan or to raise funds for the company when preferred stock is issued. When it comes to company liquidation, common stock, basically if the company owes money, and it has to be liquidated in order to pay off debt. Common stock owners, they're paid last. They're paid after the debt holders, if there's loans outstanding, things of that nature, and they're paid after preferred stockholders. So preferred stockholders are paid after the debt holders. So that's the difference if, people owning common stock versus preferred stock. The last people on the list to be paid, if they can be paid at all after the company has been liquidated, are the common stockholders. When there is a dividend payment, common stock owners or holders, there's no guarantee that they'll receive dividends. They're already the owners. Again, it's just all based on certain factors that happen. But when it comes to dividend payments, preferred stockholders, they are given guaranteed fixed dividends, and that's only because, or mainly because, preferred stockholders are um, investors. They've given the company a certain amount of money with certain expectation of receiving interest or payments for them loaning or giving the money to a company. So they want to earn some money back because they've lent their money, bought share or preferred stock within the company. And then they want to have some gains off of that. So they're guaranteed fixed payments because of that. And then redemption, meaning, if stock was to be redeemed, common stock, no. You're an owner, you cannot redeem your own stock. You cannot take back your own stock. But preferred stockholders, who are known as the investors, corporations can buy back their shares at any time, especially, if if the company is making money back and it can repay the preferred stockholders sooner than later based off of whatever the agreement is, they can buy that back sooner than later. So that's a little quick overview of how common stock works versus preferred stock. I just wanted to kind of make a side note of that, but it's really not a strong it's not really a big deal right now in the early stages of forming your corporation, especially when it's a small corporation. You don't have a whole lot of activities such as this. As I mentioned before, franchise tax. So again, when I said keep the authorized shares for common stock low, is because depending on the state you're in, you will have to pay what's called franchise tax, and it can be called something else. There's other names for it. It's also known as capital stock tax, business privilege tax, net worth tax. Um, just depends on the state. And what that is it's a tax imposed on businesses by state governments as a fee for doing business in that state. So basically, um, the state is giving you permission to do business there, and because of that, you have to pay a fee. I know, it's the cost of doing business depending on the state. It is separate from income tax, use tax, sales tax, and payroll taxes. So this is something completely different from all the other taxes that your business will probably have to pay. Um, and the tax owed is often calculated based off of the company's net worth or value of capital stock, and that's that common stock I was telling you about. So if you have a high valued, if you're valuing your capital stock, your common stock at a very high rate price per share, you will be taxed higher. So you want to keep the price lower. And the states that are affected include Alabama, Arkansas, Connecticut, I believe that will be phased out soon. I think it's no, I believe it's 2024. What I learned, the franchise tax will be phased out. So thankfully, that's good for you if you're starting a corporation in Connecticut, Delaware, Georgia, Illinois, Louisiana, Massachusetts, Mississippi. I believe the franchise tax in Mississippi will be phased out in 2028. So it's going to be a few more years before franchise taxes will no longer be required. Nebraska, New York, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Wyoming. So right now, these are all the states that do have a franchise tax. So keep the common stock shares price low. Number 15, we have fiscal year. So this has to do with your accounting and your books and how the beginning of the year for your accounting starts, and then when the last month or the ending year of your accounting ends. So typically everyone has the calendar year of January through December. That's a common fiscal year. At the end of December, that's when you're going to file your taxes based off of transactions and activity that happen between January to February. That's how you will report your activity on your taxes. Some companies operate differently. For example, if you're operating a company that deals with the education system, I know schools, they have a fiscal year from July to June. It'll start in July 1st, end on June 30th. So it just depends. Number 16. So you want to know the total cost to register your corporation with the state and any annual reporting fees. Every state does not have an annual reporting fee. I think Ohio does not have an annual reporting fee, but many states do. So you want to look that up on the Secretary of State's website for your state to get the costs. But for the cost to form or register your corporation in the state of Maryland, the initial cost is $120. And then every year you have to pay $300 to file your annual report to the state in Maryland for your corporation. 17, you want to list the name and contact information of the incorporators or owners. So we have everyone there: Latanya Banks, Michael Banks, Morgan Banks, and Jeffrey Williams. And just for the purposes of this video, just made up some information. All this is made up. None of this is real. For email addresses and home addresses and phone numbers and fax numbers. All right, next, 18, we have the name and contact information of the shareholders. And just so happen that the incorporators and the shareholders are the same people. Sometimes they're not, but in this situation, they are. So same people and, the same information for their email and address and phone numbers. 19, the name and contact information of the initial board of directors. So we have shareholders who are the actual owners, and then we have board of directors who are the people that are hired by the shareholders to help make important decisions on behalf of them for the corporation, for the best interest of the shareholders, in regards to how the corporation will be operating. And again, because this is a family business, we are same people who will be on the board, and everyone decide. In this situation or this example, we're going to have Latanya Banks as the chairman. Remember, she was acting chairman in the beginning, but she's now going to be nominated or chosen to be the actual chairman of the board of directors. The vice president will be the cousin, Jeffrey Williams. The secretary, Morgan Banks was the acting secretary, but they're just, we're just going to go ahead and make her now, because we're holding a meeting and we're actually appointing people. She will now become the legitimate secretary, and then the treasurer will be Michael Banks, the brother. All right, number 20. Checkbox if corporation will transact business in other states, then list each state below. If checked, for each state, you will need to select a registered agent with a physical address. Again, registered agents must have a physical address, no P.O. box. Qualify or register a foreign corporation and obtain any required business licenses. Verify requirements with the Secretary of State or a licensed attorney. So I know it was a lot, but let me just make this simple. They will have a second location in Washington, D.C. That's where the cousin Jeffrey Williams lives. So we're putting that there. So now we know what we need to do for that. We need a registered agent. Jeffrey Williams will be the registered agent for Washington, D.C. because the registered agent has to physically be in the state where the company decides to transact business. Okay. So that will be the answer for that. And also, they will have to register as a foreign corporation. And basically what that means is the original, so this corporation is a domestic corporation in Baltimore, Maryland, meaning that's their principal location. That's their principal state. Okay. So they are domestic. Foreign means that they're going to have other locations apart from the principal location. And it's now considered foreign because it's in another state transacting business. So you have to register with that company in order to be allowed to do business there. Okay, so there will be another forms of corporations to file in order to do business in that state. I hope that's not confusing. But basically, you're registering the company in two different states, but you're going to have Baltimore as a principal, also known as domestic, but then you're going to have Washington, D.C. as the second location, but that's called the foreign corporation. I hope that is clear. But that's what you have to do if you're going to have more than one business. Typically, people just have one business, one location, and they're just registering one state. Very simple. All right, 21. Checkbox if corporation will transact business under an assumed or fictitious name, also known as a DBA or doing business as. List the following assumed names. In this situation, we're going to keep it simple. No, it's just one name for the company. They're not going to have any other names. They're not going to do business as any other business or business name. So NA, not applicable. 22, expected number of employees to be hired within the first 12 months of formation. So because this is a commercial cleaning business and there's 2 locations, more than likely they're going to have some employees. It's still going to be a small business, so the estimate will be somewhere between 10 to 15 employees that they're going to hire within the first year of being in operation. Designated shareholder responsible for communicating with the IRS regarding tax matters affecting the corporation. This is very important too. So you have your registered agent, but then you have, someone to speak on the behalf or to be contacted on the behalf of the corporation when the corporation files their tax returns. The IRS just needs one person. So Michael Banks, who is also known as the treasurer, he was appointed treasurer. So he's going to be the finance guy. So that means he's also going to be the person, the go-to person for filing or communications when the tax returns are filed. And you have to have their social security number, because whenever you file a tax return for a business, it's going to require a responsible party or responsible person of contact, and they're going to want to make sure, that they that person is in good standing with the IRS as well. It's really interesting. So that's why I just put a fake social security number down, because you want to have that on hand. You want to make sure that that information is available for future if something was to come up. All right. Again. So we had a person that was already appointed registered agent for the for Banks Nationwide Commercial Cleaning Inc. in Baltimore, Maryland. But then again, remember, we have another location in Washington, D.C., ran by Jeffrey Williams. So he's going to be the original appointment of registered agent of the foreign corporation in that state. So there's another separate form that will be within the kit, if that is your situation. And also for this example, you'll see how this looks and how that needs to be filled out. All right, 21. We're going to try to go through these pretty quickly now. These are just kind of checks towards the end. 24. Upon motion daily made, seconded, and carried, it was resolved that, and that just basically means that the rest of the following decisions have been agreed upon and will be carried out. That's basically what it's saying. Below, check off each action that applies. Remember to pay required filing fees and return all receipts. So first item is name of corporation was reserved with the state prior to filing of incorporations. Basically, sometimes you might be in a position, or the person or incorporators might be in a position where they have a name for the company and it's available, but they're not ready to finalize and fill out the articles of incorporation and register the business with the state. Totally fine. That happens. It could just be a timing issue, but what they want to do is at least make sure they have the name. So they will at least reserve the business name with the state because it's available. In this situation, they're just going to do everything all at once. They know the name is available. They're going to go ahead and just file the articles of incorporation. They're not going to pay any additional money just to reserve the name, put it on hold until they're ready to actually file the articles of incorporation. They're just one and done. They're just doing it all. So that box is not checked. Registered agent has been appointed and signed acceptance of appointment. Done. We went over that. Articles of incorporation have been filed with the Secretary of State. We're going to say that those forms have been completed and sent to the state. So we're going to check that off. That's done. Prepared and filed assumed name, certificate, fictitious name statement if transacting business under. So that's that DBA, doing business under another name. They're not doing business under any other names but the one that they chose. So we will not check that box. Everything's okay. Filed IRS form SS4 online to obtain EIN. Also known as the employer identification number. So hopefully, whenever you form a business, you will need a business tax ID number. So we're going to say that they did, and I just made up a number and just listed it there, just to kind of get that checked off to say, okay, we have our business tax ID. Just to answer your question, what comes first, registering the business or applying for your EIN number? Um, a tip, sometimes people will file for the EIN number and then try to register their business, but then find out that the business name is not available. So I would recommend first make sure the business name is available and then that it's yours, that you have registered your business with the state. Once you have that all finalized, then I would go after the EIN number just to make sure that the EIN number isn't assigned to you with a name that's not available. This is just a tip. I've seen it happen. So I would kind of follow those steps first. Register the business, then apply for the EIN. Select bank and open a business checking account. So we'll check that off. We'll just say that they went to a bank called ABC National Bank and they've taken care of that already. Research commercial liability insurance requirements and obtain quotes for the corporation. In this situation, with them having a commercial cleaning business, it is in their best interest to have commercial insurance, liability insurance for protection because they are in a position where they can be sued. So we'll just say that they did it. So that's checked. They met with an attorney to discuss corporate bylaws, shareholder agreements, stock sales treatment, potential contracts and agreements, and so on and so forth. So we'll say that they have met with an attorney, even though an attorney is not here for the pre-organizational meeting. They have at least met with someone beforehand and got some things in order and brought it to this meeting. And that includes articles of incorporation have been prepared. Corporate bylaws have been prepared. Shareholder agreement has been prepared. Other contracts and agreements, let's say they might have some coming up contracts with some business offices that they will be servicing. So that's checked off, that has been prepared. Checkbox if shares will be issued under Section 1244 of the Internal Revenue Code. I put that there because it's not for this situation. However, it's just one of those things where if you talk to your attorney, if you went through some scenarios, this could potentially affect certain corporations. However, we're going to skip this. We don't need to dive deep into that. But that is something, in the future, depending on how your business grows and how it turns out and transact business and things like that, different scenarios. That's just something to look into in the future. So we'll skip that for now. Met with an accountant to discuss financial setup, expense reimbursements, capitalization, audit, and tax planning. We're going to check that box and say yes. They've met with an accountant. Let's just say they did that beforehand and they have a good setup for that. Next, check if selecting S corporation status, each shareholder must sign the IRS Form 22553. Okay, that's the form that I didn't say the exact number, but I briefly mentioned there's another form to fill out and submit to the IRS if they decided to be S corporation, and they're not. They're going to say C corporation status, but there's another form. Leave a comment below if you are interested in learning more about becoming an S corporation and how to fill out that form. I'll be more than happy to put something together for that, but for now, we're just going to skip that. Next, accounting method has been selected, either cash based or accrual based. We're not going to get into the deep dive of that, but basically that's just saying when you're setting up your books, your accounting, are you considered, whenever you receive and pay out money, your accounting, basically that's when it's considered actually hitting the books. So meaning you don't have invoices, you don't have some vendors and suppliers, you don't have like accounts payable, accounts receivables to manage. Cash basis means just basically pure cash in hand. When it's in your hand, it's in your hand. When it's out your hand, it's out your hand. I'll just simply put. Accrual basis is more so of, okay, well, I have this invoice, so I'm going to book it to my accounting, my books, but I'm not going to pay it right away. So it's just going to sit. So it starts to kind of create that accrual basis accounting structure. So, and most people, I'm going to say this, most people have the accrual basis. So it's safe to say yes to accrual, only because you're going to deal with invoicing, you're going to deal with vendors, you're going to deal with things like that, credit, things like that nature. So we're going to check that. Next is set up accounting and determine if startup costs will be expensed or capitalized. Again, they sat with their accountant. So that's an accounting or CPA discussion to have on when you have startup costs, like all the money that you spend initially to start the business. If that's something that you can basically get a tax advantage of at certain times. That's what is basically alluding to when it says expense or capitalized. It's just a discussion for your account. I'll say that. So we'll check that box. We'll just say yes, they discuss that. Next is research requirements for employment tax and insurance for hiring employees. We'll check that off. We'll say they probably met with someone to kind of get their HR and their employment taxes structure set up and things like that. They might have, because they're going to be hiring employees, they might have went with a payroll provider such as like ADP or Paycor, someone to handle their payroll. We'll check that off and say yes, that was done, because they're eventually going to have employees, and we'll need to have certain things in place. All right. Registered agent for each foreign corporation has been appointed and assigned acceptance of appointment. So remember, that's that second location that they're going to have in Washington, D.C. is also going to be basically considered that foreign corporation. So we're going to check that box, yes, because Jeffrey Williams will be the foreign or the registered agent of the foreign corporation. Corporation has applied for state permits and licenses to be able to transact business in domestic and or foreign states. Let's say that they looked into it to see if there's any additional permits that are required or licenses that are required. So we'll check that off. Corporate seal stamp has been purchased. This is not required; it's optional. Certain corporations, and this is more old school than new school. Certain corporations have what's called like a corporate seal, and you can make this and create this on your own. I think Amazon also has people who can customize one for you, and it's basically like maybe your company logo, and something that just kind of says, state of, here it says state of New York, but it's just basically it's a stamper with your company logo, and is used as a seal to seal like your minutes, like right here, like after you sign off on your meeting minutes, you can stamp with your company seal, and it kind of gives that official look or that official you know, um, way about it, to show proof that this is official documents of your company, like anything you stamp with that seal. So that's totally optional. In this situation, they're not going to have a seal, but I just at least wanted to bring that up because a lot of people tend to go that route, and it's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have. Stock certificates and stock transfer ledger has been obtained. That has to do with when you're issuing stocks. So we're going to check that off and say that they've done that. And then initial meeting of shareholders has been scheduled. So even though this is a pre-organizational meeting of the incorporators, now the shareholders have to have an official meeting, because, again, the state requires corporations to have meetings of the shareholders, meeting of the board of directors, and to document that. So the next meeting will be for the shareholders. We're just going to say it's going to be December 15th of whatever year, time 1 o'clock. And then again, put the location of where the meeting is going to be. And finally, we're at the end of the meeting. So there being no further business to come before the meeting, upon motion duly made, seconded, and unanimously carried out, it was adjourned. And I wanted to do this at my little gavel here. So meeting is adjourned. So the minutes have been signed off, prepared and signed off by Morgan Banks, the secretary, and has been approved by the chairman, Latanya Banks. And that's it, meeting adjourned. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave comments below. But I just wanted to give you guys a good example of what a pre-organizational meeting should look like. It's just basically, again, a template, some checklists. You kind of go through some items and just make sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. So again, just let me know if you have any questions. Leave a comment below. Um, Real quick, as I mentioned, the template that I just created along with some other forms, put them together and created the Incorporator starter kit. You will get in that kit the exact copy of everything I just went over with all the information filled in for the example, and then you'll get some blank forms to use for your corporation. And they're in Word form and PDF form, so whichever works for you. You can always edit in or edit out what you want on the Word documents. And the kit is only $10. I just wanted to make it, affordable and simple to use and follow. You can either, again, look below in the description to get the link to access and to buy the Incorporated Starter Kit, or you can go to my website at platinumblackservices.com. And if you're looking for like the full kit, because I mentioned before, like you'll need corporate bylaws, articles of incorporation, and shareholders agreement, and so on and so forth. I have a a corporate formation starter kit, and that has over 150 forms that you can customize and download immediately to, form your corporation and to have all your corporate documents created and organized and records, so you don't have to worry about anything. Everything is there. It's just a matter of you just kind of going through everything. There's some instructions also involved, but just go everything, customize it, print them out, use them, and you're good to go. Right now, I have a special offer. So if you purchase the kit now, you'll get $20 off by using the code START NOW. Again, look in the description below for the link for that kit, and there are 50 kits for each state. So just select the state for you for the where you're forming your company, because it specifically has information for that specific state. Or you can go to my website again at platinumblackservices.com to find the kit for your state. All right, so that's it. I again hope that this was very helpful. I went through everything step by step to make this as easy and clear as possible. It's a lot of information, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of information, but as long as you have a good system, some good checklists, some good templates to follow, the kit itself with all the forms that I offer, long as you have everything you need, it makes it so much easier to put everything into perspective and just to keep organized and follow, the requirements by the state. So thanks for watching, and I wish you guys the best and look forward to some new videos coming up.